Welcome back to the Rugby League Guru podcast. Got our review of the first two trials for season 2025. We obviously had Friday night and Saturday night over the weekend. Going to give my review of all of those. To be honest with you guys, I'm not too concerned about the score lines and that sort of stuff. These trials are all about individual performances and just seeing how teams gel and whatnot. Obviously, these four teams are heading over to Las Vegas over the next few weeks, so weren't playing anywhere near their full strength sides. Some of teams, there's more to talk about than others. I think the Saturday game wasn't really a heap to touch on realistically. We'll talk about a few individual performances. But yeah, more so the Friday night game where we saw more actual first graders featuring in that one and more first graders actually competing for spots as well. So a few interesting conversations to have off the back of that. Now, guys, if you are in the Roo Crew, you're watching this on Sunday night, you obviously get first dibs to the content, and our Kanguru hats have just gone live on the Guru website. You need to be in the Roo Crew to be able to get the password to get in there. You get a $5 discount on your hat. So if you're not in the Roo Crew, you can join before 5:30 p.m. on Monday and you can get the password. Go onto the website and get your Kanguru hat with a $5 discount from 6 p.m. tomorrow night, Monday night. They will be live to everyone and they'll obviously go back to their normal price. So if you're a Roo Crew member, take advantage of that over the next 24 hours. It is live now. Everyone else, 6 p.m. Monday night, you can jump on the website, no password needed, and they will be available there. They're already moving pretty quickly in the Roo Crew, so you'd want to be on your phone, on your computer, whatever it might be, at 6 p.m. Monday night, which for most of you listening on the podcast will be tonight. You can obviously see our hats here. I'm wearing it. You've obviously got the designs on the side there, the Kanguru Tour, Guru on the side, then Las Vegas on the back, inspired by a Kangaroos hat from the 1990s that we sort of tried to recreate. So very exciting, best quality hats we have ever done by far and away. It's not even close. So make sure you're there at 6 p.m. tonight on the website, or if you're in the Roo Crew, go on, grab the password now and jump in there to get your discount. All right, let's get stuck into those games. So we'll kick off with the first game from the weekend, which was obviously on Friday night. And look, as I said, guys, I don't take too much out of this one realistically. Scoreline, I don't really care, 12 all, whatever. It was more about individual performances in this game. And I obviously got my notes in the Roo Crew. We'll go through them and I'll expand a little bit more on them to give you a few more details and my thoughts from this one. So we obviously had 12 all in this one. As I said, guys, not a stack to take scoreline wise. I don't care. It's all about individual performances. The Warriors, they're probably the team I was most interested in. Saw Roger Tuivasa-Sheck named on the wing during the week, was keen to see how he went. He was obviously ruled out late. Ed Cossey came to the side, and with all due respect to Ed Cossey, had a really tough night out. I think Ed Cossey is a first grader. It's just when he's off, and it's about probably 20% of the time at the moment, when he's off, he is really off, and he made life very difficult for the Warriors at different points. Dare I say, if Roger was playing in that spot, I don't think he would have come up with the mistakes. I think it would have been a few times he could have broke the game open as well. I think it could have been a very, very different game, this one. But yeah, tough little night there for Ed Cossey. The big talking point for me was Metcalf at halfback. I thought he did really well. He wasn't perfect. He did get caught a few times, but you know what? With halfbacks, especially guys that aren't traditional sevens, I would rather them just take the tackle than trying to overplay their hand. I saw a lot of people in the comments complaining that Metcalf got tackled a bit and whatnot. I'd rather him do that than trying to overplay his hand and do something stupid. I thought he kicked well. I thought there was a couple of times even when he jumped out the back of Tamare Martin, which sort of shows that the Warriors could play with a lot of different shape and throw a lot more at sides than what most sides probably could do with their halfback. I thought he defended well. I thought he was really good in the halfback role. So obviously, Tanner Boyd, he's out with an injury at the moment, a little niggling injury, so he'll be back soon. But at the moment, you know, my biggest concern last week, and when you listen to the Bloke in a Bar season preview, we obviously recorded that before that game. My biggest concern was the kicking game. I thought Metcalf did really well. Obviously hit a 40-20 in this game, did some really good things. So plenty of positives for Luke Metcalf coming out of this game. I think he's sort of also from a Supercoach point of view, putting himself into sort of must-have kind of territory. He's just getting plenty of touches. He's running the ball. You just love to see it. And you just know with the talent that Metcalf has, there's going to be try-scoring opportunities. There's going to be big players that are going to come off the back of it simply because he's having so many touches. His halves partner, Tomato Martin, I thought he was pretty poor, to be honest with you. I know that a lot of people sort of want him to be the halfback and think he's the obvious choice. I'm not totally convinced on that. I know they had a good record with him last year, and I get that, but just my eye test, I've never been convinced that Tomato Martin is a halfback. I'll fall on my sword in a heartbeat if he proves me wrong, but I think the best play is Luke Metcalf at halfback or Tanner Boyd. For me, I think I'm still keen to see a partnership of Tanner Boyd and Luke Metcalf, which is very harsh on Tomato Martin. I'm well and truly aware of that. But it is a combo that I would like to see and just see how it plays out. So I'm not sure when Tanner is available. If he's available next week in their trial, you could potentially pair up him and Metcalf. But they obviously get on a plane to Vegas very soon after. So if he doesn't get to play before that, round one, I would be going with Metcalf and Tomato Martin. But I'd like to see Tanner Boyd given an opportunity at some point. And as well as Metcalf did at halfback, I do think 5'8" or fullback is his better position. So I would love to see Tanner Boyd really step up and allow Metcalf to play 5'8". I personally don't think it would change his role all that much, to be honest with you. It'd probably just free him up a little bit, take a little bit of the organisation off his hands, which I think Metcalf's willing to do that stuff, and I respect that, but I think he's better just playing eyes up, sort of just floating around and popping up and getting the ball whenever he wants it. So that's how I see the halves situation at the moment, but I went into that game very nervous. I came out of it going, you know what? If he is going to be the halfback, I think he can win them enough games of football for them to be relevant this year. You obviously had Fisher Harris and Barnett. It was really interesting to see Fisher Harris play so many minutes. I was talking to a mate the other day about why he, had 2 stints and why he even played in that game. And look, I think you need to remember with Fish, like his body's been through a lot over the last few years for sure. But I think you've got to also remember that he played all the way until the grand final. He then went and represented New Zealand, which whilst it wasn't an overly successful campaign for the Kiwis, it was still just more time that he played. He's then got to have his mandatory 8 weeks off, which for a lot of players would have started during that period. For Fish, it hadn't. So he has been off for a while. He's only really got back to training in the last few weeks. I think Fish would have been more than happy to play that game, blow out some cobwebs, and I think he's ready to set the example over there as well. Mitchy Barnett, when he was covered in blood and whatnot and come off, I don't know if I would have put him back on, but they're obviously just trying to work on their combinations there, and I think these boys are looking around at these young guys trying to set an example that they've put their body through the absolute ringer over the last years, and they're still showing up in these trials and having a red hot crack. So I like them playing. I was really excited to see Laban. I think he ended up starting on the bench. He was a little bit quiet, to be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed with him. I thought this might be a game where he sort of breaks out, but I think that is still to come. I thought Dylan Walker, when he got on, he looked really good. Out of him and Aaron Clark, I thought Dylan Walker was definitely the pick, and it hasn't changed my mind, to be honest with you. I think Aaron Clark can still play a role. I think him starting in the 13, get through the first 20 minutes, then you bring Dill Walker on, his ball playing around the ruck. We saw how destructive it was. I think when he came on the field, he had 3 touches in that first set he was on. He ended up laying on a try to Chance. And I just think Dylan Walker, with his fast feet and his ball playing, his awareness, as soon as they get an offload during that, 10 or 15 minute period when he first comes on, I think it's just get the ball to Dill and just let him do his thing. So I'd be keeping Dill Walker as my 14, and I'll be playing Aaron Clark in jersey 13. But Walker, when he comes on, I'd probably leave him on and let him go the distance for 60 minutes, which is pretty much what they've done over the last few seasons. So that's how I would sort of work with my 13 and 14 jersey there between Aaron Clark and Dill Walker. Other guys from this game, I thought Sam Healy looked unreal. Obviously came on late, played a bit of hooker. I thought he looked really good. We've spoken about him a little bit this offseason going from the Sharkies. I actually thought, looking at him live there, it looks like this season he's bulked up a little bit. He looks to have got a little bit bigger. Actually, bulked up is probably the wrong word. He just genuinely looks bigger. I think he's got a little bit taller and whatnot. So I really like the look of him. I think that, I've never been a huge Lussick fan coming off the bench there. I think I would prefer to go with Wade Egan and Sam Healy. But you've obviously got Dylan Walker there, so whether they can afford to do that, I'm not too sure. But I think if Wade Egan went down, I'd love to see Healy given an opportunity, because I think he'd make a really good fist of it, and I think he'd be a really, really good fit with the New Zealand Warriors there. So he was impressive. Chance, I've sort of said all off season, I want Roger Roger to play fullback, and I'm not backing down from that, but 100% Chance was fantastic, just effort on effort. He was really, really good the other night. So, you know, he obviously deserves that jersey. He's done well over the last few years for them. So, yeah, I would play Roger at fullback, but if Roger hasn't had a preseason at fullback, Chance is definitely the best option there. So I think he will wear the 1 jersey heading into the future for them. I'll tell you what, you know, I've had a lot of Warriors fans message me, you know, the refs are against us, the world's against us, that sort of stuff. I do think the Warriors, they do need to start to get an understanding of this play the ball situation. I know it's the first game, but from what I've been told by other referees, the guys were given plenty of heads up that this was going to happen. It's not like the NRL dropped a bombshell on players that they've changed the game completely. Like, this has been, you know, you touched the ball with your foot. It's a fucking expectation from when you're in the under sixes. It's not like the game has changed. And I don't mind it, to be honest with you. I want the NRL to be consistent with it. But I do think that, especially when you look at the English Super League, I'm finding more and more that their play the balls are very, very quick and they don't touch the ball with their foot all that much from what I've seen. And I do think it gets a little bit too fast paced. So I like the traditional value of it. I know on the Buy Round podcast we spoke a few weeks ago, and Burmo and James Graham sort of said, you know, what does it matter? It doesn't change anything. Maybe it's a split second. I think when it comes to the ruck and the play the ball, and when you're starting to gain momentum, that split second can really matter. So I hope the NRL and the referees stay on top of this. I've joked, and I'm not even really joking, to be honest with you, that they tend to do this every few years. Then 5 or 6 weeks later, it's just who gives a fuck, and we just forget about it. We get distracted by something else and we move on. I hope this stays a consistent thing. It's going to have some teething problems, but I do think there is a lot of positives to come from it, 100%. It just has to be officiated properly, and it has to be consistent, and players have to wake up and realise, touch the ball with your fucking foot. It's not that difficult. Who else from the Warriors impressed me? What have I got here? Healy. I thought Capewell was pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. He had a very poor missed tackle in the start, a couple of errors, got better as the game went on, but from an experienced guy like him, I think it's pretty evident he has slowed down a little bit over the last few years, and he is sort of, you know, he's an experienced guy that you want in your team 100%. But with the young talent they've got, I think it is time to sort of start to blood some of those guys. I think most of us tipping the Warriors for a bottom 8 finish this year. I really want to see your Labans of the world, your Haliasimas, these guys get big and more minutes there this year. So we'll see how it all plays out with them. But yeah, I thought he was pretty poor in this one, if I'm completely honest, Curtis Capewell. The other one was Vimalga. I apologise if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I thought he looked really good. I didn't have him in my notes, and someone pointed that out to me, and it's very, very fair. I thought he looked great, very explosive off the bench. We saw what he did in those couple of games last year. He's obviously changed his last name from Sifakula, I believe. Very, very talented guy who I'd like to see them sneak into that side somewhere. You obviously have like your Bunty Afoas and your Tom Ales of the world. I'd like to see some of these young guys get into this team, and the Warriors just lean into. They're going to have 2 running halves, in my opinion. Got really crafty 9s. I'd like to see them just lean into this explosiveness. They've got the 2 starting front row forwards, and then I think you just bring energy off the bench. Chuck in Dylan Walker as well. They could be a real dangerous side to come up against. So yeah, look, the Warriors, I thought it was a really good game for them. I thought they defended well, ticked a lot of boxes early, still got a lot of more players to come back into that side. They had a couple of injury worries throughout this game, DWZ, Barnett, these sort of guys. But yeah, for me, the biggest talking point was how good Metcalf looked playing in the halfback role. I love that he played both sides. He played a little bit unorthodox at times, but you could always tell the Warriors had direction. When it didn't work or he didn't have time, he didn't try and push a pass. He didn't try and outdo himself. He just took the tackle, got up and got a quick play the ball. So I like that from Luke Metcalf. He's not a 20-year halfback. He's a guy that's bumped around a few positions and whatnot. He hasn't played halfback for a couple of years. It's going to take time, but I think the Warriors could do much, much worse than having Luke Metcalf at halfback. Regardless, he will be in this half somewhere 100%. He's the automatic, in my opinion. And off the back of that performance the other night, I think he's earned the opportunity to be the halfback in Las Vegas. We'll see what happens with Tanner Boyd, but we'll keep an eye on that situation. Sharkies, look, guys, they didn't play all that many first graders. There was a couple getting around, your Iros of the world, Kartoa, Will Kennedy, all did well. Will Kennedy was solid, I thought. Hazelton and Talakai looked really good. Hazelton obviously scored the first try, which I think he's going to do a lot throughout his career. Thought Talakai looked great, couple of really good offloads and whatnot. Obviously, those two will come off the bench in their best 17, and what a lethal bench to have the Sharkies Sharkies. They find themselves in a very, very good spot. Sam Stonestreet, he got beat in the air early after that. I thought he was really good as well. There was young Gabriel, who's come over from the Canterbury Bulldogs a year ago. Very talented kid, got a big future. Did have a moment in this game where he got into space and he had support on his left, sort of went away from them. And then one of my real pet peeves in rugby league is when you get a turnover and a break, a guy gets 50 metres, and then guys come from everywhere. It's always heavy contact hitting the ground, but you've got to protect that ball. There was a turnover in that moment. They went up the other end, the wires, and they scored off the back of it. So a bit of a disappointing moment from Gabriel, and I only bring it up because I've watched a lot of him and I know he is a lot more talented than that, and I know he'll be really disappointed with that moment. And I think it's one of those things that I would put in him to say, hey, when you get a turn, when you make a break like that, you turn momentum with a big run like that, hold on to that fucking ball. Do not let it pop out, because it really was a big swinger in this game. If you think about the Sharks, hold on to that ball. They're on halfway with a start of a new set of 6. Instead, they're on the back foot again. The Warriors scored at the end of that set and ended up being 12-all. So I thought it was a really big moment in that game. That's what trials are for, though. Make mistakes and learn from them, and he definitely will. Yeah, look, guys, as far as the Sharkies go in this game, I don't take a heap out of this game for them. You know what their best 17 is going to be. You probably know what their best 17 is going to be come grand final day if they're there realistically. There's no real positions up for grabs. Their halves weren't playing. Hooker wasn't playing. Jaden Berrell, I'll give him a rap, but, if you guys have listened to the Guru podcast over the last few years, him playing really well in this game shouldn't shock you in the slightest. I've been saying for ages, he's the best hooker that's not playing week in, week out. He's just stuck behind Blake Brayley. You guys that watch the Queensland Cup every week over the last few years, you'll know that as well. So no shock to me that Jaden Berrell looked very good. And yeah, as we've been saying for a while, there's a lot of teams that should be looking at him. I cannot believe he's moved down from Queensland Cup and to play New South Wales Cup and sit behind fucking the Iron Man in Cronulla, who never seems to miss a game. So Jaden Berrell, very talented, made his debut last year. I think he's a bit older. I think he's 29 or so, but I think he's still got a few good years left in the NRL, and I think there's clubs that should be having a look at him for sure. Guys, that'll do us from the Sharkies. Look, they're a good side. They're going to be a top 4 side, in my opinion. You don't take all that much away from this game for them. All right, let's move to the second game. Got the Raiders and the Penrith Panthers. The Raiders getting the job done here. And to be honest with you guys, the player of the game for me was one of our favourite CBAs heading into this season. If not our favourite CBA, Owen Paddy. We've been talking about this for quite some time. The Raiders are building something special down there with these young guys they've got. And Owen Paddy's been front and centre of that for us. For a while now. So very excited about him. The last time I was this excited about a hooker, coming through the grades probably was Harry Grant. We obviously went really big on him back in 2018. He's obviously gone on to be the best hooker in the game. I'm not saying Owen Paddy's going to do what Harry Grant has done, but I think he's got the potential to be one of the best 9s in rugby league very quickly. He just ticks all the boxes for me. Played 32 minutes in this game. Obviously scored 2 tries, but also 22 tackles, 0 missed, couple of tackle breaks. Was very unlucky not to hit a 40-20 with his first nudge in rugby league. I think his kicking game is something we didn't quite see enough of in this game as well. So a huge asset for the Canberra Raiders, and I think he is destined for rep football, and I think he's going to be one of the better hookers in rugby league heading into the future. We told you this all last week, though. It's very evident. The more you get to see him, guys, I think the more you'll really start to love this guy. A lot of people mentioned me last night. He has to play in Vegas. Guys, I don't think he will. I think that Ricky Stewart has shown his cards over the years that he's not going to rush the development of a young guy. He's going to take his time. He's got Tom Starling. He has got Danny Levi, who I think will start in Vegas. But I think Owen Paddy's going to very, very quickly put pressure on a lot of these guys. Unfortunately, not a New South Welshman. He's one of those 2-headed Queenslanders, which I don't love about Owen Paddy, similar to Harry Grant. But yeah, I'll tell you what, over the next 5-6 years, obviously, Harry Grant's going to be an automatic in that Queensland side. They've got Tommy Dearden, who could be 14 or 6 over the years. But that other hooker spot, I think Owen Paddy and Blake Moser, I think they're going to go head-to-head for quite some time. And I can see in the future these two being the 2-prong hooker attack for the Queensland Maroons. And I think it's going to be a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you. So the Canberra Raiders in a very good spot. Just on Owen Paddy, scored 2 tries in this. And, I spoke to a few people who sort of commented on my things like, he crashed over from dummy half. And, yeah, he did for sure. And, I think when, he scored that try, a lot of people were like, anyone can do that. It's like, okay, why don't they do it all the fucking time? It's not as easy as it seems. The little bit of deception out to the left. And, it wasn't like he got a quick play the ball and everyone was scattered. That line was set. This is one of his strengths. He's got a low center of gravity, very strong in contact. You saw that in his defense, and in that moment, he's going to score a lot of tries from dummy half. This is one of the things he does really, really well. So it wasn't just him being selfish in that moment. It's one of his strengths. The other try, if you actually go and watch it, and, I had people say, oh, there was just, guys dropped the ball and he just happened to be there. That's just lucky. And sure, put a bit of luck on it if you want, but the reality is he was the hooker on the left-hand side tram line. He passed the ball. It goes through numerous sets of hands. It goes past numerous bodies. They put the kick into the right corner near the right tram line. Your hooker that's been on the other side on last tackle, when he knows there's a kick going to that corner, he doesn't have to be there. And that's the difference. It's the fact that Owen Paddy put himself there. He chased like a dog across the entire field just in case there was an opportunity for him to get involved. And I'll tell you what, when you do that in rugby league, the ball tends to bounce to you. And this is the other thing about Owen Paddy. He has just got good awareness, and he's just one of those guys the ball seems to bounce. So he works his dick off. He puts himself in good spots and good things happen around him. And that's just going to be the reality of Owen Paddy. That is who he is. So 2 tries that, people that probably unfortunately don't know what they're talking about will tell you, he went over from dummy half. So what? That's under 5 stuff. And the ball happened to bounce to him. It's about putting yourself in the right spot when you don't have to be there. You think about from one tram line to the other, how many guys the ball goes past that should be kick chasing. And it's the hooker who's come from the other side. He wasn't getting ready for the next tackle. It was last tackle. They were going to kick to that corner. So, yeah, look, a very good performance by Owen Paddy. Almost hit a 40-20 on his first nudge. Had a knock-on just before halftime, which I think he just got a little bit ahead of himself with 5 seconds to go. Tried to pick the ball up too quick. I thought he threw a really bang-average ball to a front rower who was trying to go under the sticks as well. So for all the positives, there were negatives there, but this is what trials are about. I believe he is going to be one of the better hookers in rugby league very quickly. About 4 weeks ago, we spoke about on Bloke in a Bar, there was a weird article that came out after Reece Robson signed with the Roosters that he was willing to go to the Raiders and the Raiders decided not to. And, I was the only one on the panel that sort of said, no, I get it. I think Owen Paddy, for the $900K you're going to have to pay Reece Robson to go to the Raiders, I'd rather keep Owen Paddy on 200 or 300 over the next few years because I think eventually he will be a better hooker, and I stand by it. And hopefully you guys were able to see the other night a little bit of what I'm talking about. So big future on the kid. One of, if not my favourite CBA heading into 2025. We'll talk more about him over the next few weeks. But if I was you, I wouldn't be expecting him to play in Vegas. And I think he's going to be a guy in Supercoach we get at some point throughout the year, but I don't think we'll be starting the season with him. But we'll see. I'd be absolutely fucking stoked to be wrong on that. I just think Ricky Stewart, we sort of know how he functions and how he works, and I do think he will go with other guys to start in Las Vegas, which, to be honest with you, big stage like that on the other side of the world, I do get it. Other guys in that Raiders game, I thought Sanders was sensational. I love what I saw. I got to tell you, though, he looks so good, but it sort of does just affirm my thoughts that I had before going into that game that I just don't think he's a 5'8". I think he's a halfback, and I'm not sure how he's going to work with Fogarty. Fogarty, asked for a release the other day. He's obviously got another year to go on his contract, but it is a club option, so it's up to the Raiders what they want to do there. Just on that note too, guys, you read the articles and everything, and they sort of paint Jamal Fogarty out to, he wants to leave the club, he wants to get out. I was at the Ricky Stewart luncheon on Friday. There was a handful of players who came up from Canberra. Jamal Fogarty was one of them, and I'll tell you what, he didn't rush out at the end. He wasn't trying to get away or anything. So I don't think it's like a bad relationship down there by any means. I think the Raiders and Jamal Fogarty know that this is just business at the end of the day. Sanders also at the club. There's every chance that Sanders has been told that jersey can be yours in the future. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. I think the Raiders are all good this year with Fogarty, but I just don't think you can pair up Sanders and him. I'm happy to see it and watch how it goes, but I don't think it's the answer. I think Ethan Strange is still the play at 5'8" as it stands right now. Other guys that impressed me from the Raiders, and look, guys, the Raiders, there's probably more to talk about with them. They played a few more first graders and a few guys that are closer to first grade than the Penrith Panthers did. I thought Albert Hopewade was sensational. I believe he's got a child due over the next 2 weeks, so he won't be going to Las Vegas. So I think you'll see Tamale make his Raiders debut over there, which I'm very excited about. But I'll tell you what, the way that Hopewade played last night and the runs that he's already got on the board as far as the Raiders go, I think it'd be very hard to leave him out of the round 2 side. We'll see how it goes. But Hopewade, for me, honestly, couldn't have done much more last night. He was very, very impressive. Chevy Stewart had an error or two here and there, but I thought in attack he was pretty good. I thought defensively he came up with some big plays as well, some big tackles. It was one on last tackle where he shot up into the front line, read it very well, so did some good things there. Chevy. Jed Stewart out on the sting. Ricky's young bloke, obviously a really good kid, did some nice things. Asuma as well, the winger, he looked dangerous. The other one that I thought, Nicholson. The Pommy fella playing on the right edge. Got through a lot of work. Got over the try line at some point and was held up. I think he's got a pretty good try scoring rate over there in the Super League. We'll have to wait and see what happens if he's actually going to have a spot in that side or not. I caught up with Zach Hosking on Friday. I don't think he's going to play in the trial this week coming, and I think Vegas is going to be touch and go. So Matty Nicholson might get a gig, but I don't think Hosking is all that far away. This calf is just holding him back a little bit. I don't think they'll take a big risk with Hosking. I think they'll bring him back when he's 100%, not when he's sort of 50-50. So Supercoach-wise, Matty Nicholson coming in on that right edge potentially. I think there's every chance we start with him, and then 2 weeks later he drops back to the bench or out of the side altogether. So I'm probably steering clear at the moment because I do think that Zach will be back, potentially Vegas, but if not, within 2 weeks after that. So it could just turn into a bit of a Supercoach train wreck there. But if anything does happen to one of those back rowers, I thought Nicholson looked really good, got through a heap of work. Who else did I like there? Noah Martin, nice try at the end, did really well to catch, got through a stack of work. Miles Martin, who if you've listened to the podcast, we're always spoken about quite a bit. Watched him when he was playing the Newcastle Knights SG Ball about 2 years ago. He was playing with Fletcher Sharp. They were the two standouts by far and away. You've probably heard me say before, I walked away from watching them play a few games that year going, Fletcher reminds me so much of Pappy, and Miles Martin reminds me a lot of Isaiah Yeo. Sort of got into the first grade system up there at the Knights, and I'm not quite sure how it all worked out, but I just don't think he really found his feet there. I know that Miles is a country boy through and through, and I think he might have sort of struggled with Newcastle a little bit. Goes down to the Canberra Raiders where they will just put their arms around guys like him in a heartbeat. I think he'll be a lot more comfortable down there, and I think you can see him probably making a first grade debut at some point this year. Skip an eye on Miles Martin, got through a lot of defensive work, really tough kid, good head on his shoulders as well. So keen to see how he goes, and I think he's going to fit in really well with the culture down there at the Canberra Raiders. Outside of that, guys, at the Raiders, not too much else to touch on. Owen Paddy and Sanders, they were the big talking points for me. Albert Hopewate looked sensational as well. I thought Mariota looked good in his minutes. Simi Sasangi scored a nice try, some very good ball playing from Sanders there. You can obviously play before the line, at the line, playing through the line is its own skill set, and Sanders has got that, which we'd love to see. Let's move to the Penny Panthers. And look, guys, as I said, not as much to talk about with the Panthers. I think we know what their 17 is going to be, give or take 1 or 2 spots. I would assume Blaise Talangi not playing in this game means that he will line up at 5'8". I think that they do have their worries about him defensively, but I think they're going to throw him in there and we'll find out how it goes. But yeah, as far as the halves went, I was pretty disappointed with Brad Schneider. I thought he had a pretty average game. Defensively, I think Owen Paddy went over him for one of his tries. A few passes that I don't think he should have thrown. And yeah, it just wasn't a great game from Schneider. And I like him, but I don't think he did himself any favours as far as trying to win that 5'8" role last night. I thought Jack Cole was the better of the two. But I thought the 14 that came on, Toalau, I believe, apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, played a few games last year. He looked really good to me. He was probably my pick of the bunch. I would probably go him, Jack Cole, then Schneider based on that trial alone. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. I do think Blaze will be the 5'8" to start round 1 in Las Vegas. But yeah, I think Jack Cole and Tolau, I think they're going to be putting a little bit of pressure on him. Once again, it's only one bad performance from Schneider. It's not the end of the world, but he definitely didn't put his best foot forward the other night. I thought Dane Laurie did some nice things. Asu Kapoa, thought he had some nice moments, some nice hands. They turned him under quite often. Jack Cole turned him under. I thought he looked dangerous on those, and those are the sort of lines the Panthers love to use. Isaiah Papali'i played on the left edge, which is a really, really good sign. I'm not convinced just yet he's going to solely play left edge. I think there's a world where he could play some middle as well, or he could end up in the middle. But it was good to see him stay out on the left edge. I think he got limited opportunities. They kept on the few times they got good ball out there, they kept on turning Kapoa back under. He got a really bang average ball from Schneider that he got absolutely smoked on. So it wasn't Isaiah Papali'i's greatest game, but I just don't think the game really went to him all that much. And I think in a trial with new kids and in a new team and everything, I think it's hard to really take yourself to the game game sometimes. So I'm not going too harsh on Isaiah Pupley. It wasn't his best game, but I just don't think it was the game was overly suited to him. So keen to watch him go around another trial. I think he'll obviously be in the side for Las Vegas. Keen to see where he does end up. It wasn't Casey's greatest game. Casey McLean, I thought he had a few errors here and there. Jesse did some good things. I still do think, just based off what Casey did last year, I think he will probably have the lead for that wing spot, but it is worth noting, Casey is a out-and-out centre. Jesse is an out-and-out winger. But I think when you look at what Casey did for New Zealand playing on the wing and what he did in first grade, I probably think he will still get the spot. I don't think Casey playing left and Jesse playing right tells us anything, because Brian Toto can play both edges. So if Jesse can come back and have another big trial, maybe he can push it. But despite not his greatest game, I would still have Casey as the front runner to grab that spot. I thought Summerton, the 9, he did some good things as well. I've liked him for a while. Outside of that, guys, not too much on the Penny Panthers. It was more about the Canberra Raiders and their combos and their young guys that are coming through the grades, who I think are going to be really, really important down there at the Raiders. When you look at what Ricky Stewart is building all of a sudden, you look around the room and you go, okay, they've got a halfback now. They've got a 5'8". They've got a hooker. They've got Chevy Stewart, KO Weeks, these young fullbacks. Like, their spine is young, and I know that's going to come with its own teething issues. But we've been saying this for a long time. They're building something good down there in Canberra, and I think you saw a lot of positives the other night. So plenty to take out of those trials, guys, more so for some teams than others. We'll get a better idea next weekend when we get the second week of the preseason challenge, which is going to be sensational. I think we've got 8 games coming your way. I'm aware that the Broncos and the Dolphins played games over the weekend. I'll be honest with you, I didn't see them. I'm not going to pretend like I did. So you'll have to go somewhere else for those analysis. But I watched those 2 main games of the preseason trial, and we'll be back for all 8 next weekend. I think the All-Stars as well, which is going to be exciting. So can't wait for that. Those squads got announced the other day. We'll talk about those this week as well. Monday, guys, we have got the Bloke in a Bar season preview. It's 7.5 hours. It's a fucking extravaganza. You're going to absolutely love it. We'll be breaking it down on the Guru podcast as well, sort of team by team or 2 teams at a time, dropping that over the next few days. And once again, guys, if you are in the Root Crew, you can go and get your Kanguru hats for 2025 Las Vegas now. If you are listening on the podcast, guys, 6 p.m. Monday night, which is tonight, they'll be going live. rugbyleagueguru.com.au. Even if you're not coming to Vegas, if you're watching from home or at the pub, whatever it might be, still be part of the Kanguru tour by getting your official hat tonight.